We continue with production, productivity, and efficiency. In the previous class, we talked about flow production, and we're going to talk about the last production method, which is cell production. Cell production is almost the same as flow, but the difference is that we make sure that we have different units, and each unit is sponsored or managed. Each unit is, how do you put it? Each unit is managed by a team leader. So it's a flow production method, but here we separate them into different units, and each unit has a group or managed leader. So cell production, it involves dividing the workplace into different cells. Each cell is a family unit. This means each cell is responsible for a complete unit of work. Unlike flow production, which we have to start from the beginning until the end. But for cell production or cellular production, it simply means we have each unit which has to complete its own task before joining up with other units that have to complete their own tasks too. They are units. They produce, the production line is going to be the same, but they have to join it up after each cell has completed their task. So we have a cell which has to complete its own task, another cell which has to complete its own task, then they have to join them together to complete the production line. That's why we call it cell. Do we get cell or not? It's a flow production type, but the difference is that here we have cellular, which means each unit have to complete its own task. So a unit or a cell is responsible to complete its own task before joining up with other cells. Inside the cell, machines are grouped together and a team of workers sees the production of the product from the beginning to the end. So it means you are responsible for your own group, I'm responsible for my own group, he's responsible for his own group, before we join up together to complete the task or the production line of the organization. So what are the advantages? Number one, floor space is released because cells use less space compared to flow production. For flow production, we need a full space, which means we have raw materials available. But for cell production, we have divided the use of components or raw materials into different cells. So there will be space for each unit to use. Space is about the area that is available for the organization. For flow production, because we need large quantities of raw materials, we might not have space. But because it's a unit, it's a cell production, it means each unit has its own cell, its own space to work on. So those raw materials and components will not be at the same spot. You're going to only have those raw materials and components that you need to use for your cell. So that means you don't need to have a whole raw materials available in the same space. And that gives space to each cell. Do we get it or not? If we are using the flow production, if the machine is here, all the raw materials and components that are needed will be here. They will fill up here. But if it's a cell production, it simply means the machine that's going to be here is a machine that is going to complete the task of the unit, of the cell. So the raw materials that are going to be here are the raw materials needed to complete the cell task. Do you see why we're going to have space here? Do we see or not? Are we convinced or confused? Convinced, okay, good. So, product flexibility is that the second one, yeah. Product flexibility is improved as production is done through different cells that work in group. So because it's a group thing, we don't have to complete tasks at the same time. That brings about flexibility. And how does flexibility comes into place? Flexibility comes into place because each cell unit will have specialists. Do you get it? So you will be assigned to a cell that you have knowledge and skill about. I will be assigned to a cell that I have skills and knowledge about. So that brings about flexibility. Do we get it?
Yes.
The third one, lead times are cut. The time to deliver will be short, unlike job production, where you have to use where you have to use your craft or handy to do it. But here, because you are involving people that knows how to do what they know how to do best, it means the time to deliver will not be as long as you think about. They will deliver on time. That is the point. Do we understand? They deliver on time because it involves the use of specialists. Is it clear? Is it clear, please? Movement of resources and handling time is reduced. If it is a flow production method, all resources have to be available at the same spot. You have to bring them. They have to be completed. But for cell, you use fewer resources, which means the movement of resources or handling of resources is the time to handle resources or use resources will be fewer. For flow production, you need to have all the equipment, all the resources available before you start the production. But for cell, You only need few resources or few materials that will help you to complete the task. So resources handling will take no time. And second to the last one, team working is encouraged. Because it's a cell production method, which involves finding certain group of people coming together to understand the tasks involved. So it means you need to have a team. You need to understand each other to be able to achieve the cell task. Do we get it or not? Each cell has to produce a product. You need a teamwork to get that done. So that means we have to encourage each other. We have to understand each other's strengths and weakness so that we can achieve the task of the cell. Do we get it or not?
No.
Yes.
No. Great. Team working is encouraged. How is teamwork encouraged? Because we have a cell. A cell has to complete its own task. Because the task is reliant on other tasks too. For the production to be complete, each cell has to produce and finish its own task. Now, if you are in a group, the group needs to complete the task. You have to encourage each other so that you can complete your task.
Okay.
So that means you need teamwork. Do we get it?
Mm-hmm.
Good. And the last one, safe working environment. Because things are not jam-packed in the same space, there are more space available, then the environment will be conducive. Do you get it? Because we have free space here. We talked about free space, right? There's a free space here. So when we have free space in between, it means the working environment will be conducive, unlike when everywhere is jam-packed with resources. Do we understand? Any question about self-production?
No.
Thank you.